Oh, don't mind me. I was just swept in by the cold, and these snowflakes have romantically settled on my eyelashes. In case you didn't get the message, 'tis officially the season to be jolly in my house. The tinsel is shimmering, the candles are flickering, the tea is steeping, and I, my friends, am reading. That's right. I'm Johanna, and I'm here to talk about books. And this video is all about the amazing, wonderful books, well, at least I hope they are, that I hope to read this winter. I spent more time than I would like to admit planning all the books that I want to read from December until February, but it was all worth it. My sister, who came with me to my local indie bookstore and patiently waited while I picked out the finishing touches of my reading list, might beg to differ, but I'm not even sorry, because the books that I picked out there were the star on top of my TBR Christmas tree. So, brew yourself a warming cup of tea or hot cocoa or coffee. Wrap yourself in your fluffiest blanket and cozy up with me while I tell you about all the books that I plan to read this winter, from atmospheric adventures to thrilling and chilling tales to festive holiday comforts. Don't go away. First on the list is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This is the author who wrote A Man Called Ove, if any of you are familiar. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard really good things, so when Beartown kept popping up on lists of winter book recommendations, I didn't hesitate to add it to my list. I have to admit, I love a feel-good sports story. Give me a underdog team rising to victory with a healthy dose of heart-wrenching emotions and plenty of montages along the way, and I'm jingling all the way home. I thought that's what this book was going to be, but I just read the whole blurb for the first time and now I am confused. From what I gather, it's about a tiny community that seems to be deteriorating, but there's this ice rink that represents hope for the community. Their junior ice hockey team is about to compete in the national semifinals, and the town is coming alive at the prospect of victory. It obviously has cozy wintry vibes, but I think I was mistaken about it being a heartwarming underdog sports story. Apparently, something happens. Someone is attacked, and the community is torn apart. So, is it a heartwarming story about a boys' hockey team rising to victory and saving their community? Or is it a drama or mystery about a town buried in secrets? I guess I'll have to wait and find out. I just don't know if I'm as excited now. So, if anyone has read this book, please tell me what you thought and if I should be excited to read it this winter. The next book, however, I am extremely excited about. It has everything I want: an author I trust, a snowy landscape, and the promise of horror. I give you Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. Why do I trust her, you ask? Well, she wrote My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which was on the list of winter book recommendations that I recently shared. I will link it here and down below, so if you missed it, you can always watch it after this. For a range of books that I recommend reading in the winter time, I know very little about this book because, like I said, as soon as I saw all the boxes that it ticked off, I was ready to hunker down with it in a blizzard. From what I understand, it follows our protagonist, Eileen, for whom, and I quote, "The Christmas season offers little cheer. She splits her time taking care of her father as he struggles with alcohol addiction and working as a secretary in a boys' prison. And it seems like she's trapped in this world that she doesn't really want to be in. And then someone arrives to turn things on their head. Eileen is enthralled and absorbed by this person who is perhaps not what they seem." The blurb literally says that this book plays out against the snowy landscape of coastal New England. Enough said. I mean sled. I mean said. My sister and I were dying laughing in the bookshop, wandering around trying to find things that I could add to my winter TBR. We would grab anything that had something on it remotely related to winter, only to be disappointed to find it was really the author's name, or the word wander instead of wonderland. She was taking the mickey out of me and my seasonal reading obsession until we came across the most wintry book you could imagine. Literally Winter by Ali Smith. This is part of a quartet of novels all named for the seasons. So I'm really hoping I like this one so I can read all the rest of them in their respective seasons, as one does. And I have high hopes for this one. It comes very well reviewed. It has the word Christmas on like every single page. And here, on the very first line, you'll find an homage to A Christmas Carol. God was dead to begin with. Apparently, the stories in the quartet work as standalone pieces, and this one just sounds perfect for what I'm looking for during the colder months, especially December. Winter, bleak, frosty wind, earth as iron, water as stone, so the old song goes. When four people, strangers and family, converge on a 15-bedroom house in Cornwall for Christmas, will there be enough room for everyone? I just can't wait to see what lies in store as I get into the holiday spirit. Speaking of Christmas, I am super excited for this next one. Last Christmas, a collection of personal essays curated by Emma Thompson and Greg Wise. I am literally just finding out now that this book was published to coincide with the film Last Christmas, which I find hilarious. An entire book published as a marketing campaign for a Christmas movie. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, I think Emma Thompson is a treasure. Among other things, she wrote the screenplay for Sense and Sensibility, which is a fantastic and super cozy movie that never fails to make me cry. So, if she played a part in this book, then I think it has potential. The collection itself also does sound super cozy, which is why I was excited to pick it up. It features personal essays from the likes of Meryl Streep, Olivia Colman, and others as they reflect on their Christmases past. I think it will be really cozy because I'm going to listen to the audiobook read by all these different actors, and their voices will fill my house with stories of Christmas and family and kindness and generosity and good festive cheer and just all the things that make Christmas so wonderful. Another Fredrik Backman book on my list is The Deal of a Lifetime, which is literally a 45-minute audiobook, so it doesn't really count. It's like a Christmas podcast. But I found it through my audiobook app and thought it sounded cute. So why not? Apparently, this is about a man who has a chance to do something remarkable to help a girl he barely knows. To do so, he needs his son, who he's meeting for the first time in several years, to help him understand what his life has been worth. The summary says, with humor and compassion, Fredrik Backman's The Deal of a Lifetime reminds us that life is a fleeting gift, and our legacies rest in how we share that gift with those we love. Another super short audiobook that I have on my list is The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman. When I came across this book on a list of winter book recommendations, clearly I spend a lot of time browsing seasonal book recommendation lists. Probably too much time that I could spend actually reading. Anyway, when I found it, I instantly added it to my TBR. I have such fond memories of going to see the Nutcracker at Christmas. Even just saying that is like an ASMR phrase made in heaven. Nutcracker, a nutcracker at Christmas. The last time I went to see it was with a friend when I was in university in Boston, and I just loved it. It's such a cozy, festive event to look forward to. And it's the type of activity I adore because it can make you feel so connected to all the people that came decades before us. Like going to see live music or going to a carnival. Just so many generations of people who have gone to the theater to enjoy this classical ballet. I just think it's wonderful. So while I don't have tickets to see the live performance this year, I'm really looking forward to diving into the original story of the Nutcracker on the page this Christmas. You're getting out of here. These candles burn in like 2 seconds. Well, it's for the Hygge, isn't it? Anything for the Hygge. Lovely. I've always been drawn to this next book simply because the title sounds so creepy to me. It's The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. I don't know why, but I get chills just speaking the name of the Winter People. I imagine these shadowy figures standing out in a blizzard, emerging from a dark forest, getting ever nearer. That's just the image that the title conjures up. The story, on the other hand, follows Ruthie and her family who live in a strange town in Vermont. The house that our protagonists occupy once belonged to a woman who, in 1908, died following the tragic death of her daughter. Then, in present day, Ruthie's mother disappears, and Ruthie is left to search for clues that might lead her to the right place. She finds the diary of the woman who died a century ago and gets sucked into the mystery. And all I can say is I'm really excited to get sucked into the mystery myself, safe and protected under a blanket. I've already spoken about this next book, so I won't spend too much time on it. I give you Early Riser by Jasper Fforde. As I mentioned before, I read this last winter, and basically since then I've been super excited to read it again this year. If you want to know more about why I loved this book so much and how it succeeded in bringing all the wintry vibes to my life, check out my winter book recommendations video. You might also find some other books on there to take you on a sleigh ride into the new year. I'm so intrigued by this next book, which was actually recommended by one of you. So thank you to the person who recommended The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. How scrumptiously wintry does that cover look? Two people, until recently strangers, find themselves on a long, tortuous, and dangerous journey across the ice. As they journey for over 800 miles across the harshest, most inhospitable landscape, they discover the true meaning of friendship and of love. I am a sucker for long, dangerous journeys across snow and ice. I'm also so curious about Ursula K. Le Guin because she's regularly hailed as one of the best writers of the 20th century, and I really want to find out what all the fuss is about. Plus, I don't know about you, but all I want for Christmas is a science fiction fantasy from 1969. Sign me up, Santa. Another iconic author that I have not yet had the chance or the privilege to meet on the page is Agatha Christie. So this winter, I'm really looking forward to finally cracking the case of the classic whodunit, Murder on the Orient Express. I can't remember if the audiobook version that I have is read by Kenneth Branagh or a cast. But either way, I believe it's going to be the perfect cozy mystery to draw me in and warm me up when I'm freezing in my flat because I don't want to pay for heating. Here's what lies in store. Just after midnight, a snowdrift stopped the Orient Express in its tracks. The luxurious train was surprisingly full for that time of year, but by the morning, there was one passenger fewer. An American lay dead in his compartment, stabbed a dozen times, his door locked from the inside. Isolated and with a killer on board, Detective Hercule, gotta look up the pronunciation. Gotta watch an ad first. Detective Her Listen, I did not study French, okay? Detective Hercule Poirot. Hercule Poirot must identify the murderer before they decide to strike again. All I can say is I'd rather be on the Polar Express. Alaska, 1920. The season's first snowfall. That's pretty much all I need to know about this next book, The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. According to the description, homesteaders Jack and Mabel are drifting apart when, in a moment of levity, they build a child out of snow. The next day, it's gone, but they see a little girl running through the woods. I don't know much about this book at all, so I truly don't know if it's for me. But the cold Alaskan setting, the magical realism, the historical fiction, and the light snowy dusting of a fairy tale all make me really excited to dive into its pages this winter. If anyone is familiar with this book, I'd love to hear your opinions and whether you think I should be excited to find out what lies in store besides a winter wonderland. Did I incorporate this next book into my TBR largely because I really liked the cover? Maybe, but I think Winter in Sokcho by Elisa Shua Dusapin has a lot more to offer than what is on the surface. It's winter in Sokcho, a tourist town on the border of South and North Korea. The cold slows everything down. A young French-Korean woman works as a receptionist in a run-down guest house. One evening, an unexpected guest arrives, a French graphic novelist determined to find inspiration in this desolate landscape. Doesn't that sound so good? I honestly feel like I don't need to say anything more about it. Oops, just got caught in another blizzard. No, the real reason we are meeting on a new day is because of technical difficulties, but I still have some very essential elements of my TBR to share with you, so full steam ahead. Next on the list is actually the book that the film Christmas with the Cranks was based on. It's Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. This edition looks a bit tragic. It's like it spent its entire life on the display shelf of some secondhand bookstore. To be fair, if I had a secondhand bookshop, I would probably fill my window display with holiday books year-round, because why not? I've never read John Grisham before, and I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan of Christmas with the Cranks. I watched it for the first time last year. I'm a few pages in, and so far, I'm not super convinced by the writing. And it's very obviously written by like a middle-aged man in the 2000s. Definitely some questionable perspectives. But at the same time, I keep finding myself wanting to pick it up because I'm so excited to have like a very Christmassy, cozy book to read in the lead up to the holidays. We meet again, Stephen King. I have read Carrie and The Shining, and so far I'm not really convinced. I did also read his memoir on writing, which I enjoyed, but I have yet to be scared by one of these horror novels that people are always raving about. Then again, I did listen to both of those books. Maybe I didn't let myself get into a spooky enough mood. So this year, I'm going to give him another shot. When I visit my parents this Christmas, I am going to borrow their copy of Misery. I've already seen the movie, so I vaguely know the plot. A successful writer is held hostage by his psychotic biggest fan. And while I don't have very high hopes that this is going to become my next favorite book based on my impression of Stephen King's writing so far, I'm really looking forward to reading a horror book set in an isolated house during a blizzard, and I hope I get a little spooked. I mentioned in my last video that in the bleak midwinter, I am strangely drawn to books set on Arctic Sea excursions. So I set out to find just that and came across Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage by Alfred Lansing. In August 1914, polar explorer Ernest Shackleton boarded the Endurance and became locked in an island of ice. Thus began the legendary ordeal of Shackleton and his crew of 27 men. When their ship was finally crushed between two ice floes, they attempted a near impossible journey over 850 miles of the South Atlantic's heaviest seas to the closest outpost of civilization. I was blown away by reviews of this book, nearly 4.5 stars on Goodreads from like 125,000 people, and then an average of 5 stars from like a million on Audible. I need to find out what is so amazing about this story. I think it's going to be exciting, harrowing, fascinating, and above all, super icy and cold. I can't wait to dive into these Arctic waters, from the warmth of my fake fireplace, of course. And with that, we have reached the end of my winter TBR. Thank you if you stuck it all the way through my very ambitious list. And if I may say so myself, what a selection! Horror, sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction, historical nonfiction, magical realism, classics, thrillers. The list goes on. And learning a bit more about these books with you has really made me even more excited for my winter reading. I think we can all agree that these books seem totally up to the task of burying me in snow. I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the books that I plan to bundle up within the coming months. And if you didn't, well, all I can say is, ah, humbug to you. Just kidding. May your winter be merry and bright, and as always, filled with the cozy pages of a wonderful book. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!